The oil companies strike back at President Biden after he comes out to tell us that it's their fault that all the gas is as high as it is. So we'll talk just a bit about that. In other news, Reliable Sources has drawn the smallest audience in history, and Stelter's days may be numbered as the new management at CNN seeks to take the company in a different direction. So I guess Stelter's sources were, shall we say, unreliable. What else do we have here? In other news, Jane's Revenge threatens open season on pro-life pregnancy centers, and the FBI starts to look into it, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. And Julian Assange gets approved to be extradited to the United States. It is going to be all of this and more. Welcome to midterm season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. I love the fact that Stardew Valley has come onto this playlist that I use every once in a while. They started pulling some of the music, which, I mean, that was lo-fi enough in and of itself that they didn't have to go back and remix it. But then they started throwing some remixes onto it, and it sounds really cool. I really like what they did with that, and I might have to go check out the Stardew and Chill album that they have out there. It looks like it's Coffee Date and DJ Cutman were the authors for that, but yeah, that's what was coming on when we were starting off here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a fair amount of stuff to go through here today, but I did pull myself out of bed early today, so I've actually been up since about 3. I don't know what... it was a little after that. It was like 3:30. I don't know what happened. I just woke up at 3:30 and couldn't get back to sleep, so got up, started doing some water the plants, checked out everything else that was happening here, picked up a few more articles from the morning here, and yeah, we were able to get started shortly after 7 because that was when the IBD article finally came out here. So we're here, we're ready to go. I might be a touch low energy off of this, but you know how I get once the caffeine gets into me and it goes towards the end of the show. We actually might start going and shouting and going all razor fisty. You never know, but it's live. Top of the show, reminder, if you're chatting today, make sure that you get your spiciest and your best stuff in. Since I have come up to say that I'm starting to compete with the AM radio folks, recommend, by the way, this program to anybody that you know that likes the AM radio in the morning. We'll see if we can take some of their monopoly away from this, but we also go through some of the live chat today. If you're driving in your car, going to work, and you are one of the AM radio folks, don't fret. We don't take attendance, and I won't feel bad if you don't chat because no texting and driving. But if you can, and you want to, and you want to have your name read aloud, make sure you get at least one message into the chat because I have all the names of all the chatters from the week right here, ready to go, ready to say thank you to all of them at the bottom of the show. And we will be looking into some of the live chat as well at the bottom of the show, as we always do on Friday. So make sure that if you want to go back and get your 2 cents heard. Again, because we're competing with the AM radio folks who can't say the F word on the radio, and sometimes the people who are listening have their kids in the car. We're not going to get too spicy off of the live chat anymore, unfortunately. Although I'll still read it and laugh about it, but you'll probably get I can't say that on the radio kind of stuff here. But yeah, go ahead and make sure you get that in there. And we've got to get into the news, even though, again, we've got a little bit of extra time. So let's get started. Let's get the live chat up so I can see what you guys are saying here. Apparently not seeing any stream on DLive. I'm showing on DLive. Like, I can see my monitor. I can see myself. Wonder if it's on your end. Because, yeah, according to this, I'm looking at myself. I don't have a tablet or anything up here, and I've got my phone doing Instagram right now, so I can't go back and check that right now. Somebody check that and see if we're on DLive, if somebody else is on DLive. Maybe Jopper9 or something? Somebody? I don't know. Let's get into it, though. All right, starting with the Dow for the morning here. Actually, before you do that, before we start with the Dow, make sure you guys go check out the great programs that are set to start off with the Turns of Pages Productions Network. And I am, of course, talking about the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the Already Conservative, and the Porch Boys. Go check out all those shows. Check out all those creators. They're great guys to have around. They're great fun. And they are a lot of, it's always great to have the conversations with them as well. They discuss various topics. I know Birkenhoff just put out a new schedule here, so he'll be getting ready to come back out there. I don't know if the RRC is actually still going, but I don't know. I haven't seen an alert for him for quite a while, but I hope he is, because I know he enjoyed doing it. But I know work gets into it. I know that's part of the reason that Kate and I aren't working together anymore, but that's what it is. But yeah, go check out all those programs. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great time. And let's get down into the news, starting with the Dow, which for the first time since 2020, the Dow is under 30,000. Yesterday dropping off 741.46 points, 2.42%. Now, it dropped off almost immediately at the beginning, and it kind of jumped around and it settled around, but it was fairly steady throughout the day. After coming back down and dropping below that 30,000 mark, it was just kind of sat there and didn't do anything. So I don't know if this means that it's going to come back up, if we're going to see our 36,000. Yeah, okay, in this fuel economy. Or I'm sorry, in this fuel crisis that we have going on here. I know, I was just trolling a little bit, but it does look like the futures are pointed up for right now, so we'll see what happens with that. And we got a new 52-week low of 29,740.35, so we'll see what happens with that once the markets open and where they go. Looking in at your Bitcoin, let's bring that back out 5 days. Let's actually get a refresh on this real quick. Bring this back out 5 days. The Bitcoin is hanging around the 20,000 mark once again. It had brought itself back up above the 21,000 mark. Almost looks like intraday almost got to 23,000 again, but yep, it's still hanging around that 20,000 mark, and I'm probably going to throw a $20 bill into it off of this paycheck just to see what happens and where it goes. You guys know I'm not a big investor. I'm trying to save up a little bit of money so I can get some property going here. But it's always fun to see where 20 bucks will take you on something like Bitcoin, something as volatile as it is. And sometimes you'll lose everything, and sometimes you'll gain a little bit. But for the most part, the big part that I always have to say with this is if you do want to dabble, gold, silver, Bitcoin, stocks, anything else, never put into it more than you can afford to spend. That's why I only throw a $20 bill at it at a time. But I'm going to see if I can't find a wallet here and see if we can't actually get some donations going on the crypto side, because I know a lot of people want out of it. And hey, if you want out of your crypto, you can donate it to me. I'll take it. I'll hold that forever. But we'll see what happens with that. Looking in at your gas. Looks like about half and half on 461 and 464 around the Madison area. Your 464 seem to be more into Madison proper, and your 461 seems to be up in the Sun Prairie area. So it's still hanging around there. It's not moving, which is, given some of the prices that we're seeing, it's good. I mean, of course, we'd all like to see it drop, but I don't anticipate that happening until the adults get back in control of Congress. The people who want to see the thriving of the American people get back into there. And now, let's be realistic, that's not a lot of the government, but there are at least some people who'll pay lip service and try to make it look like they want the best for the American people. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Let's grab one from IBD for the morning. Let me actually get the live chat back up here because I had to go check the monitors. Yes, I am single, by the way. Thank you, Chopper9. Oh, hey, we got the re-advertisement early. Let's get into it. Dow futures rise after big sell-off. Alibaba. These China stocks jump. From Ed Carson. Dow futures rose Friday morning along with the S&P and the Nasdaq after a huge market sell-off sent the Dow, S&P, and the Nasdaq to their worst levels since late of 2020. Adobe fell on guidance while U.S. Steel rallied on preliminary Q2 earnings. U.S.-listed Chinese stocks were big pre-market winners. Hope for the Chinese stocks are an economic improvement in China of a favorable ruling for the Ant Group, a digital financial giant closely tied to Alibaba, and its founder Jack Ma boosted the stocks. Alibaba stock surged before the open following wow, why can't I talk this morning? Maybe it's because I've been up since 3 o'clock. Along with fellow e-commerce giants JD.com and Pinduoduo, the iShares MSCI China ETF rallied 3.9%. The Crane Shares CSI China Internet ETF jumped 6.4%. China EV startups like NIO, XPeng, and Li Auto all rallied in pre-market trade as well. China EV and battery giant BYD was not yet active, but it's close to record highs. Tesla rose nearly 2% before the open. The EV giant raised Model Y prices in China a day after hefty U.S. price hikes in most of its EVs. Tesla stock dove 8.5% on Thursday, just above its 11-month low set on May 24th. Fellow mega-cap stocks, Apple, Microsoft, and Facebook parent Meta, have all undercut recent 52-week lows along with major indices. Microsoft is on the IBD long-term leaders. Li Auto is on the IBD 50. For the futures, NASDAQ led in the early trade with a 1.3% advance. NASDAQ has been the one, by the way, and because we look at finance every morning, they have the biggest swings in either direction. When they drop further than everybody else, and when they come up further than everybody else, which is weird because, I mean, you would think the S&P would be the one that would do that because that's got the lowest volume, but the NASDAQ always seems to be the one. NASDAQ futures led in early trade with a 1.3% advance, S&P rose 1%, and the Dow advanced 0.8% versus fair value, which means that the Dow, according to the futures, will be back above 30,000 on the open. Losses by Adobe weighed against both the S&P and the Nasdaq. The 10-year yield tumbled to 3.21% from 3.31% on Thursday. The 2-year yield fell to 3.13% from 3.16%. That's cool. Until we get the GDP back up, I would like to see the 10-year yield back down to high ones, if we could. Because that seems to be where our market volume is. But when we keep seeing 3.31, 3.21, 2.8, that's your inflation talking right there. U.S. crude oil prices edged lower. Bitcoin nudged above 21K after setting an 18-month low of 20,087 earlier this week. Pre-market action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So, not a lot of really big news off of this, just some stuff coming out of China. We'll see what happens with the markets and where they go. And we'll be talking about this, of course, again on Monday when we talk about the futures next time. But that's what we see coming off of this, and probably going to be another really steady day, just slightly above 30,000. Let's grab one from NBC. Dow sinks 700 points, dropping back below 30,000 to the lowest level in more than a year. From Samantha Subin and Pippa Stevens. The Dow on Thursday tumbled below a key 30,000 level for the first time since January 2021 as investors worried that the Federal Reserve's aggressive approach towards curbing inflation would bring the economy into a recession. Markets had rallied on Wednesday after the Fed announced its largest rate hike since 1994, but reversed those gains and then some on Thursday. The Dow dropped 2.5%, or 765 points. The S&P slipped 3.4%, while the Nasdaq slid 4.3%, touched its lowest level since September of 2020. The major averages have suffered steep losses. This week, the S&P is down 6.6%, while the blue chip Dow is off by 5.2%. This week, and the Nasdaq has fallen 6.7%. The S&P and the Nasdaq are both in bear market territory, down roughly 23% and 34% from their all-time highs in January and November respectively. The Dow, meanwhile, is about 19% below its January 5th all-time intraday high. It's about time we exit this artificial world, predictable, massive liquidity injections where everyone gets used to zero interest rates, where we do silly things, whether it's investing in parts of the market we shouldn't be investing in, or investment in the economy in ways that don't make sense, Alliance Chief Investment Advisor Mohammed El-Arian told CNBC's Squawk Box on Thursday. We're exiting that regime, and it's going to get bumpy. The Dow traded below 30,000 for the first time since January 4th, 2021, after first breaking above that level for the first time in November of 2020. That came as the emergence of the Pinko-Pox vaccines and massive stimulus from the Fed fueled a broader market rally led by tech shares and took major advantage to then record highs. So that's what we're seeing off of this. I'm not going to lie, and would be mostly for the entertainment value, but I would like to see the Dow, even if it's just for an intraday moment, dip below 10K. Just to see what happens. I know I'm a little bit of collapsitarian in that way, but I got this feeling, and somebody says, you don't want to see that. I said, yeah, I do. Of course I do. I'm well armed and have plenty of popcorn. Of course I want to see that. Basically, once again, if it happens, you guys go off and fight it off amongst yourselves and stay out of rifle range of my lawn. That's all I ask. And give me lots and lots of entertainment. But realistically, and I do hate to say this because I know that this will probably tick off the YouTube censors, but we're also on DLive and Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, go check us out on one of the other platforms. But if you saw Dow drop below 10K for even an intraday, I'm pretty sure that what they perpetrated on January 6th, and there are some things I can't say on YouTube about that either, but what I believe happened on January 6th versus what the narrative is of January 6th, what they're trying to tell you happened off that day, will look like a test run. And it won't be people who are working for people who have 3 letters for their names perpetrating it this time. It will actually be the American people. So that's what we see off of that. I got a couple more finance ones here for you. Just some things to look at as we're coming into this. With the interest rates, something definitely to look at here from Fox Business. Mortgage rates surged to 5.78%, highest level since '08. Which is obviously going to happen when you keep pumping the interest rate. The mortgage rates depend on what the Fed does for the interest rate. U.S. mortgage rates climbed to their highest level in 13 years this week as the Federal Reserve delivered the largest interest rate increase in decades to fight inflation. Freddie Mac said Thursday the average rate on a 30-year loan this week rose to 5.78% from 5.23%, the latest in a series of rapid increases and the biggest one-week jump since 1987. The rate is well above the 2.93% recorded just a year ago, and marks the steepest level since November of 2008. These higher rates are the result of a shift in expectations about inflation and the course of monetary policy, said Sam Cater, Freddie Mac's chief economist. Higher mortgage rates will lead to moderation from blistering pace of housing activity that we have experienced coming out of the pandemic, ultimately resulting in a more balanced housing market. No, that's not what's going to happen. I know you're trying to not panic people in the market right now, but that's not what's going to happen, and you know it, Freddie Mac. You know it, Sam Cater, very, very, very well what's going to happen. That's not going to be a balanced housing market. The average rate on a 15-year, which is more popular among homeowners who choose to refinance, climbed to 4.81%, up from last week's 4.38%. By comparison, the average on a 15-year mortgage is just 2.24% 1 year ago. Back when the prime rate was still 0. Rates have risen sharply since the start of the year, exacerbating on the pressure on the U.S. housing market, which has seen prices continue to soar despite more expensive mortgages. The increasingly expensive cost of a home combined with higher rates is pricing more Americans out of the housing market. And that's the important point of this article that I wanted to touch on right here. Because these people still think they put their houses on the market too late is what happened. And somebody who is, I don't want to say too much about this because, my professional life and this life are two different things for a reason. But I am studying on a real estate test, which means that's something that I pay attention to right now is real estate, how many houses are on the market. And I'm seeing stuff on the market that just sits now. It's not moving. It's not like it was a year ago where it hit the market and it was gone for $10K over asking the next day. And now these things are either going to sit there while the homeowners are paying the fees to the real estate agents, or the real estate agents are going to start to have the come to Jesus moment and sit down with the people and say, all right, we got to bring this price down, dude. Nobody's coming in here. Nobody's even coming for the open house right now. What are we doing? I want to get my commission. And at some point, especially with the mortgage being at 5.75%, or 5.78%, I'm sorry. That house you thought you were going to sell for $500,000. At some point here, if this keeps going up, especially if they have to keep hiking rate hikes, you're going to have to let that go for $80,000 if you really want to sell it. So that's what we see off of that. So, well, I hope you got your refinance in before all this started. I know I'll probably be making my initial entry into this in the midst of it because I'm trying to fix up a little bit of part of my credit so I can go and buy a piece of property. But the nice part about that is if I do get the house at the bottom of the market, but the highest point of the mortgage rate, think of what the refinance is going to be once they finally balance this back out. Silver linings. All right, let's keep going. Oil companies level Biden after he threatens the industry. From Ryan Saavedra. Two major U.S. oil companies hit back at President Biden this week after he threatened to use emergency authorities on them to stem the political fallout for the historic gas prices that have erupted under his admin. Biden's threat was contained in a letter that he sent to Exxon, Phillips, Chevron, BP, Shell, Marathon, and Valero. We read that in its entirety yesterday. There's no question that Vladimir Putin is... Jill! What was my line? It's principally responsible for the intense financial pain the American people and their families are bearing. Biden claimed, failing to mention gas prices were already surging before Russia invaded Ukraine. But amid a war that's raised gasoline prices more than $1.70 a gallon, historically high refinery profit margins are worsening the pain. Biden demanded the companies take immediate actions to increase the supply of gasoline, diesel, and other refined products you're producing, he said in the letter. Unfortunately, what we've seen since January 2021 are policies that send a message that the admin aims to impose obstacles. Oh wait, that's them. ExxonMobil responded by saying that they've been in regular contact with the admin to remind them of the extraordinary efforts the company has made in investing in energy production, which they say are more than any other company. In the short term, the U.S. government could enact measures often used in emergencies following hurricanes or other supply disruptions, such as waivers of Jones Act provisions and some fuel specifications to increase supplies, the company said. Longer term, government can promote investment through clear and consistent policy that supports U.S. resource development, such as regular and predictable lease sales, as well as streamlined regulatory approval and support for infrastructure such as pipelines. Chevron slammed the admin in response to the Biden's letter, writing, "Unfortunately, what we have seen since January 2021 are policies that send a message that the admin aims to impose obstacles to our industry delivering energy resources the world needs." Now, again, and I actually started, when they started pulling the record profits bullcrap that they started to pull over on Twitter, I want to remind you people of something. The more gallons of gasoline you put in your vehicle, the better these oil companies do. When you have to sit and think about, Can I fill my truck up, or do I have to just settle for whatever $40 will get me for right now? That's not where the oil companies make money. You know where the oil companies make money? Hey, girlfriends, let's all go get in the car and do a road trip out to Utah. That's where they make their money. The big money comes the more gas you buy. And the harder it is for you to buy gas, the less money they're going to be making. And that's one of the things that all these environmental people who try to say record high profit margins are trying to say with this. Now, keep in mind, coming out of the profit margin, you still have labor costs. You still have facilities costs, transport costs. And you're measuring these in dollars that have gone up, or gone down in value by 8.6% year over year. Previously, having gone down 3.8% year over year. So there are a lot of factors that go into this, but the reality is, these oil companies want gas to be 98 cents a gallon. From the Blaze. Here's why oil companies really aren't producing more gas. Hint, no, it's not corporate greed, from Blaze TV staff. The Biden admin has been accusing oil producers of refusing to expand operations to help offset skyrocketing gas prices. On Wednesday, Biden even wrote a letter to 7 major U.S. oil refiners, essentially saying that the admin is prepared to use emergency orders to force companies into compliance if their greed just doesn't stop. But no matter how much he tries to convince you otherwise, President Biden isn't trying to bring down gas prices. In fact, he's doing just the opposite, Glenn Beck said on his radio program on Thursday. Why aren't the oil companies putting more oil out? Well, there are a couple of reasons, and none of those have to do with Biden. None of them, even though it was Joe Biden that said when he was running for president that he was going to put oil out of business. Well, yeah, that would be the first reason I wouldn't do that. Why would you invest in something? Glenn first played a clip of then candidate Biden saying no more drilling on federal lands, no more drilling, including offshore, no ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. The next clip had the White House press secretary, token diversity hire, shifting the blame for high prices from Russia's war with Ukraine to U.S. oil refineries. The third clip showed Biden's climate envoy, John Kerry, saying in no uncertain terms, the U.S. absolutely does not need to drill for more oil and gas during a talk with the USC Center for Public Diplomacy. So, let's listen to Glenn. I can't believe I just said those words, but let's see how long this is first.
So the oil companies, why aren't the...
No, that's a 13-minute clip. We're not going to do that, but yeah. Number one, I mean, there is a global supply shortage. It's not just here. It's everywhere. But some of that does have to do with the drilling that's not happening here. So that's what we see coming off of that. All right. Let's move this one back up here. I found this one right before we got started. TikTok investors. I don't think this is what I actually had pulled up, is it? Nope, this is what I wanted. That's what I wanted here. I was going to say, I didn't think the mortgage thing was that. So this is unconfirmed right now. And thank you, Elephant Man, for pointing out the possible flaw in this here. But allegedly, this ExxonMobil from East Dallas, LL Major Nick says, Mr. Major just sent me this photo from his phone. He took it in East Dallas, and that is an ExxonMobil station showing out. Now, there are people in the comments saying that they're seeing stations that are out of gas right now. Actually, I was a little bit appalled, and the Quick Trip down here in town, I thought it was out of gas too, because the regular unleaded numbers were blanked out on the big sign, both in front of the store and the one that shows to the highway. But it turns out that it's just they probably have lights out or something, because I got down and there's actually a price on the pump. So And there were people filling up with regular unleaded, so. Not confirmed if this is true, and Elephant Man points out in the comments, come on, at least show a picture of an empty lot. You can't post a picture insinuating gas station has no fuel and show 2 vehicles fueling up. I don't see a nozzle. Although, that may be a perspective, because I actually thought that was the pump, but it looks like the pump is behind. But yeah, it looks like we've got the LUV and the SUV both sitting by the pump and possibly filling up. Maybe, possibly. I do see, it looks like a little head over the top of there. So it's possible that this is a Shoop. But again, there are people in the comments saying that their favorite station is out. So that's what we see off of that. Clint from Liberty Lockdown, a clip that I haven't listened to yet previously. But Clint says, they're going to ESG virtue signal all of us into a global Great Depression. Let's listen to Token Diversity Hire.
So, I know the president once said that he was going to end fossil fuel. Is that now off the table?
No, we are going to continue to move forward with our clean energy proposal, our climate change proposal.
So, I know the president once said that
he's not going to end fossil fuel, and we knew that anyway, but they're going to try to move the message because it's not playing well with the American people. What else do we have here? This one I wanted to touch on, and I promised Mr. Zed and Hoopy Star both that we would have this on this morning's show. So we're going to talk about guns for a little bit. Now, we see a flow chart here, and there's another one actually, slightly different but the same idea. Mr. Zed posts this flow chart from yesterday talking about red flag laws. So, this is Jane, a radical progressive. Jane works at the same company as Randy, who posts content of his scary guns and target shooting. Triggered by this content and knowing that Randy recently argued with his boss, Jane reports him to the authorities. Leftist-controlled police department is forced to ask court to seize Randy's guns because this probably, especially if Jane the ultra-progressive is working with Randy, they're probably in the city. Statistically. Leftist-controlled police department is forced to ask the court to seize Randy's guns. Randy is unable to defend himself in court or counter the evidence. Anti-2A judge infringes on Randy's 2A rights, which means he ain't never getting those guns back. And this is just one of the ways that red flags get abused, but Hoopy Star came out and pointed out another way, and this is usually how gun control actually gets abused. This is Jane, a racist bigot. Jane works at the same company as Randy, who is black. Triggered by this content and knowing that Randy recently argued with his boss, Jane reports him to the authorities. White supremacy controlled police department is forced to ask court to seize Randy's guns. Randy is unable to defend himself in court or counter the evidence. And again, the same way, anti-2A judge infringes on Randy's 2A rights. But it's a matter of skin color this time and not progressive ideology. Just like gun control was in the beginning. Thank you, Crookshank. And another flowchart for this. Right Girl Problems, retweeting this one back out. Governor Tom Wolf, with the photo, red flag laws allow us to take action when someone has a gun, or who has a gun begins to act erratically. Red flag laws still require due process, and any removal of weapons is temporary. No, it's not. So this is what they want the flow chart to look like. This is what Tom Wolf, the Democrat governor of Pennsylvania, wants you to believe. And even still, the messages in this reek of, hey, if you don't go along with our narrative, then we just might have to find something wrong here. This is Jane. Jane's social media contact Randy posts photos of guns and cryptic messages. And that's the key point right there. It's the cryptic messages. Who decides what the cryptic messages are? Who decides? Who's the authority that says, hey, this person is out of his gosh darn mind? And then the flowchart goes pretty well the same way. Jane calls the police to report the police petition in court to temporarily remove Randy's guns, probably leftist controlled or white supremacist. Police provide evidence that Randy's a danger to himself or others, in which he has no opportunity to defend himself. And the court, with an anti-2A judge, agrees to temporarily remove Randy's weapons. Except he can never satisfy the conditions to get them back. No, there is no due process in a red flag law, no matter how much Tom Wolfe wants to lie to you. The government cannot deprive you of rights until you have had the opportunity, and you can plead out if you really want to. I don't recommend that. But until you have the opportunity to sit down in front of a jury of your peers, the government cannot deprive you of your rights. So that's what we see off of that. Brian Nichols tweets out with this meme, "Red flag laws will only disarm extremists." You thought moms at school board meetings were domestic terrorists. Food for thought. From ABC. Senate negotiations on gun reforms stall over boyfriend loophole and red flag laws. From Allison Pecorin. Top negotiators on a bipartisan gun safety and framework deal huddled behind closed doors for several hours Wednesday evening to try to dissolve remaining differences, but the group's efforts to expedite passage of an agreement is stalled, at least for the moment. Since a group of 10 Democrats and 10 Republicans, that's not who this group is. John Cornyn is on this group. It's not 10 Republicans. It's 10 monoparty people who have an R next to their name. Announced an agreement on Sunday on a framework of proposals aimed at curbing gun violence in the wake of mass shootings in Uvalde, Texas, and Buffalo, New York, in which both shooters were in the same Discord group as an FBI agent. A bipartisan group of senators has been working to speedily turn the list of ideas into a bill ready for consideration on the Senate floor next week. But two provisions, one focused on incentivizing states to implement violence prevention programs and other dealing with closing the so-called boyfriend loophole, are now tying up negotiations. Chief Republican negotiator, and I say Republican loosely, John Cornyn, said Wednesday. If we can settle these two issues, I think we're on our way, but I'm concerned now, given the time it takes and the need to complete our work, really, by tomorrow, that we've got to settle these issues, Cornyn told reporters on Wednesday morning. When negotiators emerged from their meeting on Wednesday evening, they noted some progress, but said discussions on the two major issues will need to continue on Thursday. "We did make progress," Cornyn said, "but we are not there yet. Aren't you excited?" And you know they put 10 Republicans on there so they can come back and try to make sure that whatever pile of crap that comes out of this room passes the filibuster. There was a reason behind that. "We're continuing to make progress," Senator Chris Murphy, top Democrat negotiator, said after Cornyn's departure. "This is a very tight timeline to land some very serious issues." Now, as I mentioned, first off, the boyfriend loophole. If you're a domestic woman beater, I'm actually kind of okay with that. Not under red flag laws. You should still be able to sit in court and defend your case. But the red flag laws are blatantly unconstitutional. They violate the Fourth Amendment. That can be overcome on a state level, and that's the reason they're trying to do it that way. They're going to do it the same way they did with the drinking age. Because the federal government cannot make a federal law on the drinking age, and the smoking age too, by the way. Because the federal government cannot make a law about that, same with red flag laws, they're going to do the same thing that they did with the drinking age. Oh, guys, look at all this highway funding. Look at all this highway funding. Do you want this? Do you want the highway funding? Oh, you better pass that red flag law. No. I'm going to take that away if you don't pass that red flag law. Oh no, you want that, don't you? Don't you? All right. This is from Cron, which is not a green check verified source. And it was provided to Cron by the Rolling Stone, which is also not a green check verified source. Just so you know. But I wanted to give you guys some of the narrative they're going to try to come back out and jam down your throat. Hellfire, the Uvalde shooter, owned a device that makes the AR-15 even more deadly. From Tom Dickinson of the Rolling Stone. The advertisement is slugged, unleashing hellfire. It pictures a gunman wearing a skull mask and blacked out eyes who unloads an AR-15 that is sending spent cartridges flying from its ejection port. The ad copy reads, all you do is squeeze the trigger and shoot at rates up to 900 RPM or rounds per minute. The sales pitch for a Hellfire trigger device, a gun accessory that allows a semi-auto rifle to fire at rates similar to a machine gun. No, you uneducated fool, it does not. Although the physics behind the device are nearly identical to that of the bump stock, now illegal under federal law, Hellfires remain cheap and easy to acquire, including evidently by a teenager bent on mass murder. The gunman in the Uvalde massacre had purchased a Hellfire device, which was recovered from one of the classrooms. Did he purchase it, or did his handler purchase it for him? These are answers that I need. These are questions I need answered. Which was recovered from one of the classrooms where the massacre took place. According to the investigative documents reviewed by the New York Times, a former newspaper, federal authorities reportedly don't believe the device was used in the attack, but it had been deployed. The carnage at Robb Elementary School. But had it been deployed, the carnage, where 19 children and 2 teachers were murdered, might have been unimaginably worse. Even in trigger-happy US of A, machine guns are supposed to be illegal. A central fixture of the federal firearms law since the days of Capone's 1930s is that fully automatic weapons are too powerful to be in civilian hands. Yes, modern consumers can buy high-powered weapons, like AR-15 style rifles, which are not a fully automatic weapon, that are nearly identical to guns used in the US military, except they're not. But these guns fire only 1 round with each trigger pull. So, this is a full level of propaganda. Nothing in this article is true. They might have found a Hellfire device at the site. It wasn't deployed mysteriously. I don't know, that almost sounds like it was planted. But something else I want to point out here, and Ron makes a good point. In Al Capone's 1930s, gun laws were the least of the laws that Al Capone was breaking. You know, he was selling liquor, and we were in Prohibition time. And apparently tax evading, too. So, that's the narrative they're trying to push to you. Let's talk about the media. John Nicosia, source. Stelter is down to weeks, if not days, left at CNN. They go on. He's everything that reminds the new owners of the Zucker era. They desperately want to get past. More to come. They continue. Management is confident Stelter is the one sharing the internal pushback to fellow media reporters while simultaneously stirring discontent within the ranks. FYI, my Discovery sources. John Nicosia, 2 sources. Warner Discovery, former CNN Zucker's girlfriend, Allison Gullis, will not be staying on with the network once the dust settles. This is from 2/2/22. So, right before she left. And then on February 20th, Allison Gullis resigns as Warner Media chief, accuses her and Jeff Zucker of standards violation. But whether or not he's on his way out the door, Nicosia, well, we'll have to wait and see what happens down this, but there's some other supporting factors behind this. From Fox News, CNN's reliable sources with Brian Stelter draws smallest audience since 2019. From Brian Flood, CNN's unreliable sources with left-wing host Brian Stelter had its lowest rated episode since September 2019 Sunday, with only 580,000 viewers tuned into the struggling program. Wow, are there that many people flying right now? Really? Reliable sources also struggled on the advertiser-coveted demographic of adults aged 25 to 54, averaging only 73,000 viewers from that critical category. Stelter's program shed 13% of the total audience who tuned into the show that precedes it, Fareed Zakaria, GPS, and lost 25% of Zakaria's viewers among the demo. It was Stelter's smallest audience since September 15th of 2019. Stelter's Media Affairs program turned a blind eye to the jarring lack of coverage that the press gave the aborted assassination attempt of Justice Brett Kavanaugh. The New York Times, a former newspaper, ABC, NBC, CBS, and CNN were all criticized by conservatives for downplaying or ignoring the alarming incident, but Stelter paid the story no heed. The Sunday Morning News, which are known for recapping the week, gave Kavanaugh the snub on as ABC's This Week, CBS Face the Nation, and NBC's Meet the Depressed, and CNN's State of the Union also completely avoided the subject, instead heavily focusing on the January 6th Selfie Fest committee hearing. Stelter made no mention of the bizarre lack of coverage surrounding the threat to Kavanaugh. Media Buzz, which airs at the same time on Fox News, averaged 1.4 million total viewers and 189,000 among the demo to crush reliable sources in both categories. And we've listened to Stelter. We've read from Stelter's articles. We've listened to him talk to people. He really is a disingenuous little potato. And I can't think of a worse person for this to happen to. And one of the things to point out that the Chrome Dome here, that's lost almost all of his hair, and that smile that says that he's going to drink the blood out of your veins, is that do remember, I'm 4 years older than this guy. Now, I know we were going a little bit touch and go on the old hairline here for a little bit, but it does seem to be coming back. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's just because I started eating better, or getting more sun because the sun is coming out, or just a reversal of the fever I had when I had the pinko pox. But I mean, even back here, it's starting to thicken back up again. But I've got this mostly full head of hair, and I have 4 years on this guy. So we're not going to play the song yet, because he's still there for now. We'll see what happens with that and where that goes. More CNN news. CNN's Chris Licht wants to avoid calling Trump election claims the big lie, according to a report. From Thomas Barabi. New CNN boss Chris Licht reportedly nudged producers to avoid describing former President Trump's claim that the 2020 election was the most freest and fairest election in history, nothing bad happened, honk honk, as the big lie. A move that comes as top brass drive a shift towards neutral views coverage. Licht, who took over as CNN's president earlier this year, is driving an overhaul of the left-leaning network, revealed his preference during a conference call with show executive producers and management on Tuesday. Mediaite reported. The CNN president suggested that shows should instead refer to Trump's disproven claims as Trump's election lie or election lies. Licht asserted that using the phrase, "the big lie," essentially parroted the Democrat Party's branding and hurt CNN's objectivity when covering the topic. Well, CNN is not known for having objectivity, so... CNN reps did not immediately return a request for comment on the report. Licht purportedly told producers that his stance did not constitute a mandate for CNN shows, which are in the midst of covering the ongoing Select Committee hearings on the events surrounding last year's Capitol riot. So, that is what we have for that. Let's skip that one, because that seems to be the same, unless there's video on here. No, we'll skip this one. In other news of the mainstream media doing oh so well, from the USA Today themselves, USA Today removed 23 stories from the website and other platforms following an audit of reporters' work. No author given. After receiving an external correction request, USA Today audited the reporting work of Gabriela Miranda. The audit revealed that some individuals quoted were not affiliated with the organizations claimed and appeared to be fabricated. The existence of other individuals quoted could not be independently verified. In addition, some stories included quotes that should have been credited to others. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that with all the crap that's happening with Taylor Lorenz right now, USA Today and probably a lot of the other networks are going to start cleaning house. As a result, USA Today removed 23 articles from its website and other platforms for not meeting our editorial standards. The headlines of the articles are listed below. Miranda has resigned as a reporter for USA Today and the USA Today network. We strive to be accurate and factual in all our content and regret this situation. We will continue to reinforce our strength and strengthen our reporting and editing diligence and processes as we, let's see how funny this is, improve our process for those who want to lodge complaints or request corrections. Ensure stories have clear and sufficient identifying information for individuals quoted. Ensure that reporters take appropriate steps at all times to verify source information. Okay, that'll be the day. Ensure that institutions are contacted to provide a response or statement if they are referenced in the story. Could not be immediately reached for comment. Apply additional scrutiny to sources found through blind connections on social media platforms by email. Reinforce our standards for crediting other outlets for their work. All right. Here are the 23 articles, and it's kind of interesting which ones they are. Here are the 23 articles that were removed. Some of them, you might not think, okay, I don't care about this, but some of them, well, you'll start to see some of the stuff here. The articles: Washington, D.C. couples call wedding dance ban excessive. TikTok bans milk crate challenge from its app, citing concerns over dangerous acts. Texas abortion ban could lead to stockpiling contraceptives and pregnancy tests. Capybara population wreaking havoc in wealthy community in Argentina. What do the different stages of breast cancer mean? Which is the most dangerous? Real life Squid Games hit show chance to spotlight Korean culture. More than decorated skulls. What is the Day of the Dead and how is the holiday celebrated? Friends are also family, how the unofficial holiday Friendsgiving has grown. The top 10 most popular liquors during Christmas and why you should grab yours now. McDonald's employees leaps out a drive-thru window to save woman choking on chicken nugget. Anti-vaxxer pushes urine therapy as COVID antidote without scientific evidence. Russian troops halt attack a nuclear power plant but remain in control. How dangerous could this be? Here's the interesting one. Georgia redistricting pits Democrat incumbents against each other in the May primary. Campus ministry at Virginia Tech had its pride flag stolen, replaced with a Confederate flag. I still don't buy that one, by the way. That's on TikTok, not our menu. Starbucks baristas can make viral drink orders, but need time and patience. Disneyland Snow White ride faces backlash over Prince Charming's kiss. Cinco de Mayo is a Mexican holiday, so why does the U.S. celebrate it more? Well, because booze. If not skinny jeans, then what? Gen Z tells millennials that jeans are out of style. Sunscreen for dark skin or acne-prone skin, how to find good sunscreen match. From Alison Felix to Simone Biles, the female stars of Tokyo are inspiring women around the world. 5 hours of silence was torture. Facebook and WhatsApp are lifelines for some families. This is my land, I stayed. These Ukrainian women are among thousands choosing to fight, not flee. Also interesting. This isn't about music, it's about freedom. Why songs chanted at Cuba protests matter. So, all in all, a fairly benign list, but there are a couple in there that are bringing up attention, especially given the current political climate and what's happened with Taylor Lorenz. So, if you were looking for any of these articles to go back and reference again, they are gone. Archive everything, of course. Vice President Harris launches online harassment task force. Thank you, Midget B from the Discord. From Zoe Richards and Dara Gregorian. Vice President Diversity Hire on Thursday launched a task force aimed at combating and preventing online harassment and abuse, saying, for far too many people, the internet is a place of fear. Harris was joined by survivors and advocates in the kickoff of the National Task Force, which will be charged with developing recommendations for state governments, online platforms, schools, and other public and private entities within 6 months. The task force aims to address the growing problem of online harassment and abuse, which disproportionately targets women, girls, and LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBTYADLTMA+- people. The White House official told reporters in a call on Wednesday. The creation of the panel, which President Brandon established by executive action earlier Thursday, comes after mass shootings in Uvalde and Buffalo, among other places, horrified the nation and spurred bipartisan negotiations in Congress on gun restrictions. So, pretty sure this is going to be the new Ministry of Truth. The White House said the shootings underscore the role the internet can play in fueling the hate, misogyny, and abuse, with spillover effects that threaten our communities and safety offline. Hire noted that the Uvalde shooter had threatened to kidnap, rape, and kill teenage girls on Instagram, even though he only had 2 posts on Instagram. And that one of his online targets had tried to shrug the abuse off, saying that's just how online is. Think about that! It's becoming normalized. The panel's recommendations will aim to prevent and address technology-facilitated gender-based violence, including a focus on the nexus between online misogyny and radicalization to violence, the White House said. The guidance will include recommendations on boosting interagency coordination on prevention efforts, data collection, and research. Yep, this is the new Ministry of Truth. That is exactly what this is. With a special focus on social media and effects on adolescents to access to support for victims and training for federal, state, and local officials. This is a workaround for the Fourth Amendment. Unlawful search and seizure. Doesn't that make you feel special and comfortable? Speaking of alphabet agencies, FBI is investigating attacks on pro-life centers and organizations. From Mary Margaret Olahan. The FBI is investigating attacks on pro-life centers and religious institutions across the U.S., The Daily Wire has learned more than 20 pregnancy resource centers and offices of pro-life groups have been attacked or vandalized since the leak of the draft Supreme Court opinion, indicating the justices are likely to overturn Roe v. Wade, according to the Catholic vote. The militant abortion group Jane's Revenge has claimed responsibility for a slew of these attacks, and this week allegedly issued a radical missive, which we'll be talking about in just a moment, to continue violent attacks on pro-life clinics and organizations. In response to inquiries regarding the alleged Jane's Revenge communique, the FBI said Thursday evening that while it would not comment on specific groups, the Bureau is investigating a series of attacks and threats targeting pregnancy resource centers and faith-based organizations across the country. The FBI takes all threats seriously, and we continue to work closely with our law enforcement partners and will remain vigilant to make sure that right-wing people are taken down and we ignore left-wing people. The Bureau told the Daily Wire, "We would like to remind members of the public that if they observe anything suspicious or have information about potential threats, to report it to law enforcement, where it will be subsequently ignored." In the purported Jane's Revenge missive posted by Abolition Media, the abortion activists promised that they are not one group but many. The message claimed responsibility for attacks on pro-life organizations and groups in Madison, Wisconsin, Fort Collins, Colorado, Reisterstown, Massachusetts, Olympia, Washington, Des Moines, Iowa, Linwood, Washington, Washington, D.C., Asheville, North Carolina, Buffalo, New York, Hollywood, Florida, Vancouver, Washington, Frederick, Massachusetts. I almost said Maryland, because I know there's a Frederick, Maryland, but that's Mass. Denton, Texas, Gresham, Oregon, Eugene, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, among others. And this is what they have to say from the Daily Mail. Radical pro-abortion group Jane's Revenge declares open season on pro-life clinics and describes how easy and fun it is to attack them after claiming responsibility for a string of vandalism and arson attacks. From Andrea Cavalier for DailyMail.com. Radical pro-abortion group Jane's Revenge has declared open season on pro-life clinics as it described in a letter posted this week how easy and fun it is to attack them after claiming responsibility for a string of vandalism and arson attacks. A letter dated June 14th and posted Jane's Revenge website on Wednesday. The group claimed responsibility for the attacks as they pointed to a supposed 30-day deadline for all pro-life groups to cease operations, warning them that your 30 days expired yesterday. And here it is. This is really small. Let's see if I can't blow this up a little bit. No, that actually made it worse. All right. Here we go. You have seen that we are real, and we're not merely pushing empty words. As we said, we are not one group but many. You have seen us in Madison, Fort Collins, Reisterstown, Olympia, Des Moines, Linwood, Washington, D.C., Asheville, Buffalo, Hollywood, Vancouver, Frederick, Denton, Gresham, Eugene, Portland, among others, and we work in countless locations invisibly. You've read the communique from the various cells, you've seen the proliferating messages in graffiti and elsewhere, and you know that we are serious. We were unsurprised to see 30 days come and 30 days pass with no signs of consilience or even bare minimum self-reflection from you who impersonate healthcare providers in order to harm the vulnerable. History may not repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes, and we've already seen such stanzas where medical autonomy is stripped away. Humanity is increasingly criminalized, and merely surviving becomes largely untenable. Your 30 days expired yesterday. We offered an honorable way out. You could have walked away. Now the leash is off, and we will make it as hard as possible for your campaign of oppression to continue. We have demonstrated in the past month how easy and fun it is to attack. We're versatile, we are mercurial, and we answer to no one but ourselves and the FBI. We promise to take increasingly drastic measures against oppressive infrastructures. Rest assured that we will, and those measures may not come in the form of something so easily cleaned up as fire and graffiti. Sometimes you will see what we do, and you will know that it's us. Sometimes you will think merely you are unlucky because you cannot see the ways we interfere with your affairs. But your pointless attempts to control others, to make life more difficult, will not be met passively. Eventually, your insurance companies, your financial backers will realize your bad investment. From here forward, any anti-choice group who closes their doors and stops operating will no longer be a target. But until you do, it's open season. We know where your operations are. The infrastructure of the enslavers will not survive. We will never stop, back down, slow down, or retreat. We did not want this, but it's upon us. So we must deal with it proportionally. We exist in confluence, in solidarity with others. In the struggle for complete liberation, our recourse now is to defend ourselves and build robust, caring communities of mutual aid so that we may heal ourselves without the need of the medical industry or any other intermediary. Through attacking, we find joy, courage, and strip the veneer of impenetrability held by these violent institutions. And for the allies of ours who doubt the authenticity of the communique and actions, there's a way you can get irrefutable proof that these actions are real. Go do one of your own. You're already one of us. Everyone with the urge to paint, burn, to cut, or jam locks at the time, go forth and manifest the things you wish to see. Stay safe and practice your cursive. Jane's Revenge. So that's what they have to say about that. Aren't they charming? Aren't these people charming? I hope they know that a lot of pro-lifers are pro-2A. I really do. Not saying anybody should do anything, but, you know, when it comes down to your life. And the White House had something to say to that, because of course they did. White House condemns radical missive, promising more pro-abortion violence against pro-life organizations. From Mary Margaret Olahan. On Wednesday, President Brandon Zadman condemned a radical missive purportedly from the pro-abortion group Jane's Revenge, promising to continue violent attacks on pro-life clinics and organizations. Violence and destruction of property have no place in our country under any circumstances, and the president denounces this. White House Assistant Press Secretary Alexandra Lamana told the Daily Wire. We should all agree that actions like this are completely unacceptable regardless of our politics, she added. Posted by Abolition Media, which describes itself as an online news source for revolutionary movements, the communique claims to be from Jane's Revenge. More than 20 pregnancy resource centers and offices of pro-life groups have been attacked since the leak of the draft Supreme Court opinion, indicating that the justices are likely to overturn Roe v. Wade, according to Catholic Vote. Yeah, see, that's the thing, is the White House had to get out in front of this. Now again, when there's violence in the streets, when there are people being attacked, especially on the left-wing White House, but for both wings, they're happy people. Because then people go running to the government for help. So that's what we see off of that. Now we gotta go talk about some January 6th stuff, which I have not been watching any of the hearings since the primetime one because, well, it costs $150 to fill my truck. That's why. But Allison Green, and I was not able to find video of this. I tried. You can ask the people on the Real Off Hour server. I tried. I tried very hard to go find this video. And it's buried. Allison Green tweets out, though, NBC Lester Holt just said they have to end their live coverage of the January 6 hearings to go to U.S. Open Golf. Choosing golf over democracy. How very appropriate. Reminder, Trump spent 307 days playing golf over his 4 years in office. To which our friend Putz over in our Discord reminded us that they spent 1,448 days reporting on Trump playing golf. But all I see when I say to this, when I see that NBC now has to go back to a sporting event over what's supposed to be the most important hearings of our time is ha 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 ha. NBC's takeaways from day 3 of the January 6th Selfie Fest hearings. Lawyer Eastman told Trump election plot wasn't legal. From Scott Wong. Well, he's not Wong. John Eastman acknowledged the plot to block certification of Joe Biden's election victory wasn't legal, but ultimately aggressively pushed it anyway. Even after the attack on the Capitol, he pushed for then Vice President Pence to overturn the election. And Eastman later sought the presidential pardon from President Trump. That was some of the evidence that the January 6th committee laid out Thursday during its third public hearing to build the case that Trump's pressure campaign against Pence was an unconstitutional bid to reverse his defeat. Many times during turning to Eastman's own emails and testimony to highlight how he had been the architect of the scheme to keep Trump in power. Here are the key takeaways from the third January 6th committee public hearing. Eastman was aiding Trump's pressure campaign on January 4th, 2021, 2 days before the Selfie Fest. Eastman acknowledged to Trump, Pence counsel Greg Jacob, and others in the Oval Office that the strategy violated the Electoral Count Act and was illegal, Jacob testified. A day later, Eastman reversed course and was again pushing the Pence team to pursue the most aggressive option, reject electors from contested states in a bid to overturn the election. I was surprised because I viewed it as one of the key concessions the night before Jacob told the January 6th panel on Thursday. Even after Pence and congressional lawmakers had to flee for their safety, multiple people had died in the attack. What? Eastman, late on the night of January 6th, emailed a furious Jacob and asked the Pence team to consider one more relatively minor violation and delay certification for 10 days to allow states to investigate unfounded allegations of widespread fraud, with a sentence that is pushed and loaded with weasel words.
Tonight, the January 6th committee presenting new evidence of what was happening behind the scenes as the mob surged into the Capitol. What they say is a culmination of a failed pressure campaign by former President Trump designed to force Mike Pence to overturn the election results. In newly revealed testimony, close aides and advisors detailing a private phone call between the president and vice president the morning of the 6th.
The conversation was pretty heated.
I remember hearing the word wimp. Either he called him a wimp. I don't remember if he said, "You are a wimp."
Like me, you're not tough enough to make the call.
It was a different tone than I'd heard him take with the vice president before.
Do you remember what she said? Her father called him
the P word.
But Pence, relying on advice from his legal team and on his faith, stayed firm, even after coming within 40 feet of the rioters.
He resisted the pressure. He knew it was illegal. He knew it was wrong. We're fortunate for Mr. Pence's courage on January 6th. Our democracy came dangerously close to catastrophe.
Pence was evacuated to a safe location deep beneath the Capitol. These never-before-seen pictures showing the vice president making calls to Pentagon officials and congressional leaders, working through the attack and refusing to leave the Capitol.
The vice president did not want to take any chance that the world would see the vice president of the United States fleeing the United States Capitol. He was determined that we would complete the work that we had set out to do that day.
The committee says the plan to have Pence reject the election results began with a lawyer named John Eastman, who witnesses say knew the idea was illegal and unconstitutional, and who later requested a presidential pardon.
I said, "Are you out of your effing mind?" I said, "You're completely crazy." I said, "You're going to turn around and tell 78 plus million people in this country that your theory is this is how you're going to invalidate their votes because you think the election was stolen?" And I said, "They're not going to tolerate that." I said, "You're going to cause riots in the streets."
I assert my Fifth Amendment right.
Eastman repeatedly pled the Fifth when questioned by the committee. Republicans continuing to pan the proceedings as a distraction.
We've got record inflation, soaring gas prices. What are they focused on? What gets their primetime billing? It is their seething hatred for Donald Trump and anybody who's ever supported him.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it, too. Now, once again, did we, and I didn't watch this, so I actually have no idea. Did Eastman take the stand? Did he sit down there and raise his hand and say, I swear under oath, this, that, and the next? Did he do that? I'm going to say probably not. And I could be wrong, because again, I didn't watch it. It just looks like the people surrounding him and the selectively edited video that goes along with this. And testimony coming from people who, once again, have no cross. There's no way for somebody to come back and try to rebut this and ask questions outside of the scripted narrative. Let's grab one here from our friends over at NPR. John Eastman is the Trump lawyer at the center of the January 6th investigation. This was heard on Morning Edition from A. Martinez and Deirdre Walsh. And do remember, NPR needs our money comrade to continue to spread their ideals around the world, to spread communism, which is much better than capitalism, to everybody. So make sure that you hit that donate button and give them your money, our money comrade, to make sure that communism can spread, because it can only spread through National Progressive Radio, never printing reality, NPR. Let's see what they have to say. We might have to skip this, because this might just be a listen only. You know what? Let's check it out.
An illegal scheme to overturn the 2020 election. A vice president under pressure to do so, and a lawyer for Trump who knew it was illegal.
That lawyer's name is John Eastman. He's a well-connected conservative lawyer. He pushed a false theory that Pence could block the certification of the electoral votes when he oversaw the count in Congress on January 6th. At Trump's rally that morning, Eastman called out the vice president.
Anybody that is not willing to stand up to do it does not deserve to be in the office. It is that simple.
NPR congressional correspondent Deirdre Walsh joins us now. Deirdre, can you remind us who John Eastman is?
Good morning. Eastman was an outside legal advisor to Trump. He was a law professor who had circulated a memo that got a lot of attention from Trump supporters because it argued that Vice President Mike Pence had the power to reject the certified electoral votes from some states. Allies like Rudy Giuliani seized on this theory, and so did President Trump.
How much access did Eastman have to the Trump inner circle leading up to January 6th?
A lot. He met repeatedly with Pence's legal counsel, Greg Jacob, who testified yesterday. Jacob had researched the law. He actually went to the same law school as Eastman, and he told Eastman in no uncertain terms that the theory that he was pushing to give this incredible power to one person, the vice president, who was on the presidential ticket, was not in line with the Constitution. Eastman also talked to White House lawyer Eric Hirschman, who was incredibly blunt about what could happen if Pence did what he was asking. Here's Hirschman.
I said, "You're going to cause riots in the streets." And he said, words to the effect of, "There's been violence in the history of our country, Eric, to protect the democracy or protect the republic."
As we heard earlier, Eastman was there at that rally, which preceded the riot at the Capitol.
Another committee sued to get Eastman's emails, and the judge in that case said it was likely that he broke the law. So what do we know about his potential legal troubles?
Right. It was federal judge David Carter in that case where there was a ruling that Eastman had to turn over materials to the January 6th committee. Carter cited 2 possible criminal statutes that Eastman may have violated: obstruction of an official proceeding and conspiracy to defraud the United States. We heard after January 6th Hirschman.
All right, so that's where we're going to listen to this. So it doesn't sound to me like Eastman himself was on the stand for anything here. We'll confirm that with The Hill. But what I have some problems with this entire thing. One of them I actually made known on Twitter this morning. One of my biggest problems with this entire thing, with everything about this, is the call for the National Guard to be called out off of this. Because that seems to be central to this. According to most sources on the conservative side, Donald Trump himself called for more National Guard to be posted, ready to go. And according to the left wing, Donald Trump left the National Guard out of there. And it was Pence that had to call for the National Guard. And everybody sat back and wished that Donald Trump had called for the National Guard. My biggest problem with this whole thing is, why are there so many people who are so willing to turn the U.S. military on its own citizens? That bothers me. Why is that the go-to? And then, of course, all the other details about this. I cannot think of a single instance before this where anybody paid attention to this supposed rubber stamping procedure. Now, obviously, I know it exists. It's constitutional. And it has to happen. But I can't think of any other time where the common man actually paid attention to this. Even under Bush, who they hated. Even under Trump, by the way. Where they were begging and screaming, and the mainstream media was trying to have people, and people were out there trying to come back out and stop the vote and protest the inauguration day. And, you know, we saw the obvious picture of the screaming woman. No! And then all of a sudden, everybody knew that we had to be there on the day that they were going to count the votes and certify the ballot. It seemed to be suddenly become common knowledge in internet culture that this was a thing that they do every 4 years, no matter what. And now, of course, we all know this, but, and again, they're trying to gaslight, oh, everybody always knew about January 6th, and that was the thing. It's like Juneteenth. We always knew what Juneteenth was. What are you talking about? All right. Last one from The Hill. Then we'll get off of that topic. Trump lawyer Eastman takes verbal beating during January 6th hearing. Wow, I can't really talk this morning, can I? John Eastman, the controversial lawyer who unsuccessfully pressed Mike Pence to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential race, took center stage on the January 6th panel's third hearing on Thursday that was focused on the pressure campaign against the former vice president. Eastman emerged in the weeks between the 2020 election and the January 6th selfie fest as one of the most influential voices in Trump's circle, and yet nobody knew who he was until yesterday. Weirdly enough. Pushing the dubious claim that the vice president had the authority to reject electors and determine the election winner independently, he appeared at the January 6th selfie fest on the ellipse that preceded the selfie fest on the other side of the National Mall. But Thursday's proceedings suggested there were legions of doubters among the Trump team and Team Pence as Eastman pressed the issue. Jason Miller, a former senior advisor to the Trump campaign, told the committee in testimony aired Thursday that didn't have a cross-examination that campaign lawyers Justin Clark and Matt Morgan thought Eastman was crazy and said as much to anyone who would listen. Chief of Staff Mark Meadows acknowledged Eastman's plan was illegal, according to Mark Short, who was Pence's chief of staff. Tensions were high between Team Trump and Team Pence at the time, but Thursday's testimony made it clear that members of both groups thought Eastman's arguments were baseless and could lead to violence. The January 6 panel argued that's exactly what happened. It showed video on Thursday of Trump pressuring Pence to take action at a rally near the White House that preceded the Capitol attack. Other video was shown of participants marching to the Capitol chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," and adjusting their coats to make sure their badges don't show, and discussing dragging politicians into the streets. Eric Hirschman, who worked with the White House's counsel office in the Trump White House after defending Trump in his first impeachment trial, appeared particularly exasperated with Eastman's antics. "Are you out of your effing mind?" Hirschman recalled telling Eastman. Judge Dave Michael Ludwig, a conservative legal stalwart whose views shaped Pence's argument against intervening in the election certification, called Eastman's theory constitutional mischief. "I would have laid my body across the road before I would have let Vice President overturn the 2020 election on the basis of historical precedent," Ludwig told the committee as one of its in-person witnesses for Thursday's hearing. Not only this, but what we did learn from this past January 6th is that for every Republican president that's ever been, Trump, term 1, W, HW, Reagan, Nixon, Ford wasn't inaugurated. He assumed the office after Nixon. This is a regular thing for Democrats to come in and throw a tantrum and try to block the votes, to try to object. Ludwig was referencing an assertion by Eastman that the 12th Amendment could be interpreted to allow Vice President to determine the winner of an election and reject the state electors. Pence and his team ultimately determined the Vice President had no such authority. Then why have the ceremony? Serious question, why have the ceremony? If we supposedly all know what's going on after certification time, why have the ceremony? Except to make it easy pickings for the American people to honk honk, be led into a place and let in by police holding the doors to make their voices heard. Honk honk. Witness testimony also made clear that Eastman was undeterred despite multiple warnings that his idea could lead to violence. Committee member Pete Aguilar said Thursday that Eastman pleaded the Fifth to avoid incriminating himself dozens of times during an appearance before the panel behind closed doors. Yes, that's his right. You don't have to tell the government everything about everything if you think it can put you into prison. They have to prove it without your testimony. Furthermore, once again, Eastman, nowhere close to the stand. I know all these people are coming out here. I want to see Eastman on the stand. I want to see Ginny Thomas on the stand. I want to see Donald Trump on the stand. Yeah, and they're not going to do that. And I can tell you why they're not going to do that. Because those people will not go along with the pre-scripted narrative. They won't sit there with the script that they memorized and said, "This is what happened on that day. Trump is evil. I was slipping in blood. I was so panicked for my life. What will I ever do? How will I ever recover from this?" But they'll sit back here and run, again, friendly testimony from people with no cross-examination. No questions from anybody other than the people who are trying to push a narrative and forward a narrative. And you wonder why they cut to golf. From the Daily Wire. A little bit scary, and there's some video that go along with this one. Driver with apparent anti-Trump bumper sticker on car slams into Trump store. From Ryan Saavedra. A person driving a Jetta slammed into a store selling pro-Trump merchandise in Easton, Massachusetts on Thursday afternoon, prompting an investigation from local law enforcement officials. Police say the Jetta was driven by a 46-year-old man from Raynham who was transported to Good Samaritan Medical Center for treatment of non-life-threatening injuries, a local ABC News affiliate reported. A different local news station reported the police took the driver into custody and towed the car from the store. Just before he did that, there was a little boy with his mother shopping right in that spot. Keith Lambert, the store's owner, told local news station the clerk was about to go to the bathroom and he would have gotten hit. Thank God nobody got hurt, that's all I can say. And here it is, by the way. That dude was cruising. That guy got air off of that one. That was not a fall asleep at the wheel, swerve to avoid a pedestrian, lose control of the car, or anything else. It's, well, Garth Brooks said it best. He never hit the brakes and he was shifting gears. Sabrina Silva, a local news reporter, tweeted, "The family tells me the store will be closed for about a week as they rebuild." It's probably going to take you a little bit longer than that. I'm guessing there's going to be some structural damage to that one. There is the aftermath, including, open this back up here, a Nirvana sticker, a Ramones sticker, and an anti-Trump sticker with a barcode to make the Hitler mustache, by the way. I am very glad that nobody was hurt, because that could have turned out much, much worse. That could have turned out way worse. Especially as fast as that guy was going. Because like I said, that dude was cruising when he got in there. We are running up on the clock here, so see what we can get through for the rest of this. Because we do have to make sure to get some of the live chat in for you guys too. We want to take some time for that. You guys have been busy today, by the way. Like, ridiculous. Like, what was it? I think before we were out of finance, you already hit 100 messages. So I don't think we're going to get all the way to the top, unfortunately. So those of you who were talking at the top, which I think Jopper9 was there, but I don't see any messages from Jopper9 lately, should make sure you guys get some names in there just to say, but yeah, you guys have been busy. But yes, very shortly here, we'll be checking in, reading this list here, and checking in with what you guys have to say. Michael Avenatti, you know, the one who's going to be president, the one who is going to defeat Donald Trump for the White House. Yeah, he has now pled guilty to 5 criminal charges in a federal court. From Adam Sabes. Michael Avenatti, the former lawyer for Stormy Daniels, a porn star, pleaded guilty to 5 criminal charges in federal court on Thursday. Avenatti pleaded guilty to 4 counts of wire fraud from defrauding clients, as well as 1 tax-related charge during a court hearing in Santa Ana, California. He faces a maximum sentence of 83 years in prison. A lawyer who is representing himself failed to reach it. Okay. Even if you yourself are an attorney, you have the right to have another attorney and the right against self-incrimination. Both of those things you waive when you go and represent yourself. And this guy thought this guy was going to be the president. Wow. The lawyer who was representing himself failed to reach a deal with federal prosecutors earlier this week, but decided to change his plea in an effort to hold himself accountable and avoid any further embarrassment to his family. He admitted to obstructing the impending efforts by the IRS to collect unpaid payroll taxes, which add up to $5 million. In addition to 5 criminal charges, Avenatti pleaded guilty on Thursday. He could face an additional 31 counts depending on the government wants to pursue those. A decision on the remaining 31 counts is expected next week. Avenatti's sentencing date will be mid-September if the government opts not to pursue the remaining 31 counts. He'll be forced to pay fines in excess of $1 million in restitution, which the government says is $14 million. The hearing was delayed on Thursday while Avenatti met with his appointed counsel, then told the judge he's prepared to plead guilty to 5 counts this morning. Avenatti is serving 5 years on federal pen in California for 2 convictions handed down in New York in relation to stealing book proceeds from Stormy Daniels. He was also convicted of attempting to extort Nike if it didn't pay him up to $25 million in cash. So, there it is. That dude. Who was going to be president, don't you remember? What else do we have? Biden calls it bizarre to claim his big spending caused high inflation. Yes, you heard that correctly. President Brandon said on Thursday it was bizarre to claim that his big spending plan has led to high inflation. Biden made the comments in an interview with the Associated Press. I think... Yeah, no, that's Levine. The great one, as they say. I don't know, I never had a lot of time for Levine. The need for mental health in America, it skyrocketed because people have seen everything upset, Biden said. Everything they've counted on upset. But most of it's consequences of what happened. And what happened as a consequence of the COVID crisis. He went on to say the overall mindset of Americans is not good. People are really, really down, man. When asked about whether his coronavirus relief package worsened inflation, Biden unequivocally denied the claim. You could argue whether it had, on the margin, and a minor impact on inflation, he continued, but I don't think it did. Most economies... Joe, wake up. Most economists do not, but the idea that it caused inflation is bizarre. Americans face more economic bad news on Thursday when the stock market continued its collapse, but Biden claimed it was unlikely to mean a recession was coming. Oh, I want to see the GDP shrink by more and more every time he denies that it's coming. Every time he denies that there's going to be a recession, I want to see another point added to what the shrinkage is going to be. I think I'm up to 1.8 at this point. And I previously said I thought it was going to be a shallow shrink, but a shrink nonetheless. I'm predicting a 0.5% drop in GDP for this quarter. First of all, it's not inevitable, he said about the recession. Secondly, man, we're in a stronger position than any nation in the world to overcome this inflation. Are you questioning me? You want to go for a push-up contest there, fat? He was also defensive about his role in causing the rise in inflation. If it's my fault, why is it the case in every other major industrial country in the world that inflation is higher? You ask yourself that. I'm not being a wise guy. Well, most of the rest of the countries in the world trade everything on US dollars. But there it is, 81 million votes. Buck stops here. Some more FBI fun stuff. Exclusive Florida woman who found Ashley Biden's diary in halfway house is under FBI investigation for selling the journal, in which the president's daughter recalled showers with my dad, probably not appropriate, and details of her drug and sex addiction. From Jose Lambiet and Josh Boswell for DailyMail.com. A Florida woman who found Ashley Biden's private diary is being investigated by the FBI not for stealing the journal, but for selling it, Daily Mail has learned. The diary's explosive contents include Ashley's speculation that showering with her father, then Senator Biden, as a young girl may have contributed to her sex addiction. I remember having sex with friends at a young age. Showers with my dad, probably not appropriate, she wrote in a January 2019 entry. After a stint in rehab, the president's daughter, now 41, briefly lived in a Palm Beach home often used by recovering addicts, and then left her diary there when she moved back to Philly in 2020. Single mother of two, Amy Harris, also fresh out of rehab, moved in weeks later and found it under the mattress. Harris allegedly showed the diary at a Republican fundraising event and sold it for $40,000 to right-wing organization Project Veritas. Yeah, well, they're not right-wing either, but the president's daughter wrote that she was hypersexualized at a young age, details her chronic drug abuse, affairs outside her marriage, and how her finances were down to the wire. Now she made Joe cry with worry over her ahead of a Democratic primary debate. Her writings also show Ashley may have been using drugs while helping to campaign for her father's presidential bid in 2019. And now the FBI is investigating her. Because of course they are. Gotta use those DOJ powers. Your political enemies can't be allowed to thrive. Let's grab another one. Yeah, we gotta do this one. Because this one's important. We can't do very many more. Well, we gotta do this one, because this one's important. Another one from our friends over at NPR. Never Printing Reality. This one is an audio only as well, so we're going to skip this one. Really need to pre-read these things so I can find the ones that are audio only. Well, let's grab one from CNBC then. The UK approves WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's extradition to the US. And the Clinton body count adds one more. From Karen Gilchrist. No, I'm sure the Clintons won't have anything to do with this. I'm sure he'll just get into jail somewhere in the U.S. and have a sudden bout of depression about the U.S. jails and feel like he can't take it anymore. I'm sure. I'm sure that's what's going to happen to Julian Assange. The UK has approved extradition of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to the US, where he's wanted over the publication of hundreds of thousands of classified military documents and diplomatic cables. The deportation was approved Friday by UK Home Security Secretary Priti Patel following a series of failed legal battles in the UK courts. However, a number of appeal routes remain open to Assange, with 14 days to appeal the decision. Assange is wanted by U.S. authorities on 18 counts, including spying charge, relating to WikiLeaks' release in 2010 and 2011 of vast troves of confidential U.S. military records and diplomatic cables, which they claim had put lives in danger. On 17 June, following consideration by both the Magistrates' Court and High Court, the extradition of Mr. Julian Assange to the U.S. was ordered. Mr. Assange retains the normal 14-day right to appeal, UK Home Office spokesperson said. In this case, the UK courts have not found what would be oppressive, unjust, or an abusive process to extradite Mr. Assange, nor have they found that extradition would be incompatible with his human rights, including his right to a fair trial and to freedom of expression, and that whilst the US will be treated appropriately, including in relation to his health. Friday's extradition approval is the latest development in a years-long saga for Australian-born Assange. He spent much of the last decade in confinement, either in prison in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. He is currently being held at a high-security Belmarsh prison in London. So, I hope he gets his appeal. I hope something happens. Or at least he can go back to another embassy somewhere. But, yeah. If he does make it back over here, that boy gonna die. He gonna die. Or maybe it'll be on the plane, like James McAfee, on the way back over here. Am I not getting my YouTube chat? Yeah, check that. Because I see a response to 80s Kid, but I don't see his message. It's weird. Yeah, the last message I have from 80s Kid is talking about Biden, who would return a donut with a hole in it. I just went back and checked YouTube. Alright, we gotta do... What else do we have to do? We had to do the Assange one. Let's do this one. We're gonna kind of skip around a little bit on those last few, but yeah, we'll be done here in just a moment. And I do want to do this one from NBC too. Ghislaine Maxwell's cellmate claims she was offered money to kill Maxwell. From Anders Hagstrom. Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer says her cellmate claimed multiple times that she's been offered money to kill Jeffrey Epstein accomplice. Maxwell's lawyers made the allegation on a Wednesday court filing, which sought to secure a later sentence in their case. Maxwell was convicted on 5 of 6 counts against her in December, with the most severe charge being sex trafficking of minors. One of the female inmates in Miss Maxwell's housing unit told at least 3 other inmates that she'd been offered money to murder Miss Maxwell and that she had planned to strangle her in her sleep. The filing read, adding the inmate claimed the payment had been worth an additional 20 years incarceration. The incident reflects the brutal reality that there are numerous prison inmates who would not hesitate to kill Miss Maxwell, whether for money, fame, or simple street cred, Maxwell's lawyers argued. Well, and I don't know how it is in the ladies' prison either, but outside of the Clinton body count, kitty diddlers don't usually fare well in a men's prison. I can't imagine they fare any better in a women's prison. But I don't know. We don't hear the stories of that one very much. The inmate was reportedly moved to a different unit of the Brooklyn prison where Maxwell is staying, according to the New York Times. Alright, what else do we have? We'll skip the Veritas one. I wanted to do this one. This one's just me complaining about Ford. Pete Buttigieg brags about $48,000 EV to people who can't afford gas. Looks even dumber when Ford recalls the EV. From Blaze TV staff. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has been telling these naughty Americans who are struggling to afford fuel for their older gas-guzzling vehicles just to go get a brand new electric vehicle like the Ford Mustang Mach-E, listed at a market average of $47,553 in Consumer Reports. Here he is, all charged up, ready to go, and oh so excited to pick up a friend, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm, and share the momentous news about a new national network of 500,000 electric vehicle chargers. Granholm, get in, y'all. We're driving into an all-electric clean energy future. Buckle up. We're kickstarting the American EV future. And who could forget the Transportation Secretary's helpful advice to people who can't afford the record-high gas prices in March. Clean transportation can bring significant cost savings for the American people as well, said Buttigieg. Last month, we announced $5 billion investment to build out our nationwide electric vehicle charging network so the people from rural to suburban to urban communities can all benefit from the gas savings of driving an EV. But now that Ford is recalling 48,924 Mustang Mach-E electric vehicles because of a defect in the vehicle's battery contactor, will Buttigieg have to go back to riding his bike back and forth from his security detail's giant SUV that follows along behind him, which was definitely not ever a publicity stunt? I don't know. All I know is this right here is not a Mustang. This is not a Mustang. This is an Edge with an electric motor and a horse on the front. This is not a Mustang. No. It's bad. Not a Mustang. And some bad news before we get into the live chat for the day here. Unfortunately, and this is another one of those get your kids out of these public schools or public programs, because this wasn't actually a school, this was a summer program. Alaska school thought that students were getting milk for breakfast. They got floor sealant instead. How do you even get to this depraved point? From Tim Stello and Lindsay Papia. A dozen elementary school-age children consumed floor sealant that they believe was milk at a breakfast program in Alaska, school officials said on Wednesday. Children attending a care program at the Sit-Iti Shanox Glacier Valley Elementary School in Juneau were given the sealant Tuesday, the school district said in a statement. Shortly after breakfast was served at 8:45 a.m. by an outside company, Nana Management Services, children began complaining that the milk tasted bad and was burning their mouths and throats, the statement said. School and company staff discovered that it was actually a floor sealant resembling liquid milk, the statement said. Staff immediately directed students to stop consuming the substance and removed it. A school official immediately contacted Poison Control and alerted parents, the statement said. Of the 12 children who consumed the sealant, 1 sought medical treatment and 2 were picked up from school. They may have sought medical advice, the statement said. The condition of those students was not known. The care program is for students ages 5 to 12. The remaining sealant was removed from the school and placed in hazardous storage, the statement said. Get your kids away from these situations. A part of me actually has to wonder now that I didn't think about this when I first pulled this up. I just wanted to make sure that, this is another avenue to talk about homeschooling. But now that we've talked about Jane's Revenge and how we might not even know what it is that they're doing, is this a Jane's Revenge thing? Is this what this is? Going after the kids? I don't know. But this is just... how do you confuse that? I mean, yes, I understand they look similar in this, but somebody had to come up and pour sealant from a container into either a milk jug. I mean, is this a case of hazard communication? Did they use the milk jug for storage and not label it? What's the story here? I have questions. But with that, we're out of here. Well, we're not out of here yet. We're done with the news, though. I'm not going to do any more off of this. But we are going to go check in and see what you guys are saying here. So I have written the names of everybody who chatted in the live chat throughout the week here. And we'll go check in with that. But we're going to run up to the top of the live chat here first and see who's been up at the top. I think our top messages might have canceled out. Yeah, they're already going away here just because you guys have been so active today. Which I love to see, by the way. Ron Helton, that might be Spartan. Spartan says, the Great Nuclear War Reset. Honestly, when I hear the Great Reset, it sounds to me like a drop of a nuke and a new forced global civilization after it to prevent war. Ron says, the 100% gas has been 509 here for 2 weeks now. What's regular? Joffer9 says 5 minutes till the market opens. Yeah, I haven't even looked to see what the markets are doing yet. We're probably up a little bit. Oh, they jumped to... Come on. Get that label off of there. Yeah, they jumped to 30,140 and then immediately reversed course again. That's funny. I like that. It's like a stalagmite. Look at that. Alright, anyway, live chat. Spartan says people can't report you if they think that you own nothing. Ron says the government that has lied to us in every war to murder people is going to decide if you are sane. That's insane. Temporary 99 years, says Spartan. An armed society is a polite society. Robert Heinlein, my favorite sci-fi writer. Spartan, I can't do that one. I'm sorry. But Spartan would rather live in a world where there's no need for people to have to carry. I am all for people owning guns, but if everyone has to carry, it means something is very effed. Well, it's not always just that either. And with that, after this, I'll go in and check in with the list here. But it's not always that too. It's like I say, like I always cite. When I was in high school, I knew which cars and trucks in the parking lot in high school had a long rifle or a shotgun in them, cased and unloaded, per Wisconsin law, always. Always cased and unloaded. But I knew which ones had them in there. Because the kid coming back, it might have been a coyote trying to get into the cow pen. That's usually the big one. Or, run across something coming home. It was the farm kids usually who might have had to come in and say, hey, get out of here, coyote, wolf. There were rumors of a bobcat running around the woods up there at one point. I never knew if those were true or not. There's a bear that lives on my dad's property. It wasn't there for the school shooting. It was there just in case they ran into a critter that had the intent to eviscerate them. So it's not always defending yourself as a reason to carry. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Monday. Our chatters on Monday. Quest Fanning. Ron Helton. Jopper9. R-Volt. 80s Kid. Shawshank 0034. Blind Fear. Chilaga 1984 and Elephant Man joined us also on Monday. On Tuesday, we had Quest Fanning, 80s Kid, Randy Crush Saga, Jopper9, No to Bud, which I know a lot of my friends here say yes to Bud. Luke Wee joined us. Chilaga 1984, Horatius, and Blind Fear. Wednesday, our chatters were Quest Fanning, Arvolt, Ron Helton, KTZed dropped by and joined us for a little bit, 80s Kid, Chilaga 1984, Randy Crush Saga, Nephilim Ninja of Nibiru. Yesterday, our chatters were Quest Fanning, Ron Helton, Chilaga 1984, Arvolt, Harvey McLeod was here for a little bit yesterday, Randy Crush Saga, A Gaines P, threw one in there. Looks like we got some lemons thrown around here. Thank you for that. I can't see that from the monitors that I have, by the way. Unless I actually physically open the DLive monitor. Joffre9 and Legit Ghost Sniper, who followed yesterday too, by the way, over on the Twitch side. Thank you for that. All right, let's see what else you guys are saying here. We're doing TV series. The Offer is a really good series. Well, I have Paramount Plus. I could actually look at that. I know I've got The Godfather marked to watch because I've never seen it. And they tell me that's one of those great American movies that everyone's supposed to have seen. Another one is The Chosen. Ron Helton says, you ever defended your case on a protective order? It's automatically assumed you're a threat and you're forbidden to own a weapon. Happened to a friend of mine. No, I've actually only filed for protective order. I've never had one filed against me. Spartan, pointing out correctly, Trump said he supports red flag laws, but conservatives still wanted to lick his feet. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that, I can tell you that. Job for 9. Highway funding. Money cleaning ops. Yep. Quest Fanning says the non-even-handed approach of law enforcement to domestic abuse accusations makes it hard to be okay with the provisions even for confiscation. On those grounds, they never believe the man, but IRL, 60% of the abusers are female. Protective, and Ron makes a good point off this too, protective orders are only worth a damn if the person it's used against will actually follow it. In some cases, I think it makes some act violently because of the PO. Or the crazy Puerto Rican girl just ignores it and still breaks into your apartment and tries on your underwear when you're at work. I'll give her that. She never got violent. She just did weird stuff. Ron Helton pointing out correctly, they're outlaws. Spartan, I'm glad they're not trying to ban the Barrett M82. Ron says, full automatics are a waste of ammo. That's why the M16s are now just semi-auto and 3-round burst. Yeah, when I was in Georgia last, I think it was the second day that we went to the range. Because Mr. Zed and I went to the range, just us, because Katie had a house cleaner that she'd got for a gift for Christmas come in. But the second time we went to the range, Stephen and Katie were with us. And the particular range that we went to had an automatic weapons rental that you could rent an automatic and use it on their range. And it was a 9mm, I think it was a 9mm Uzi is what they had to rent back out. But yeah, just to hear that thing go off downrange, and you could just see the dollar signs flying up away from the thing. You could see the dollar signs flying up out of the barrel in the form of smoke. Uvalde shooter could have done more devastation with a shotgun. Yeah. '80s Kid with us today. The gun ban thing is total BS. Look on YouTube at London Crime. Stabbing capital of the world. Well, somebody's got to take care of the werewolves in London. You know, one time I saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand. Let's see. The M16 will soon be phased out with a newer rifle. The XM5 and the XM250 by Sig Sauer. Doubt if most of the Guard units will get the new rifles right away. Quest Fanning pointing out, Stelter is already rich, kind of an unfair world. Quest Fanning says, we must ban assault mentorships and end big brothers and big sisters. Spartan, CNN is objective the same way a rapist is romantic. I probably should have done an earmuffs warning on that one. Apparently, Jason Blair lived a couple blocks from Fanning. He just rewrote other people's articles to say he was on the ground. Someone at his employer became suspicious and audited his travel. The milk crate brings all the boys to the yard. Well, it brings them to the yard because gravity does it for them. They try to climb up the milk crates and boom, they're suddenly face down in the yard. The Cinco de Mayo celebration was started by Mexican Americans proud to hear the news. It also served as inspiration for many of them as Union soldiers in the Civil War. Fanning says harassment is bad. It's not more important that it's disproportionate. Spartan says, it'll be like the UK. They come to your house for online posts. Yep. Targeting MGTOW, says Fanning. Twitch Rebate says they want some kind of ID to access internet in order to have greater control. That's way they know who do what on the internet. Spartan, especially after we heard, well, this was long before we saw the article about the floor sealant, but Spartan, integrity at the FBI is like fresh milk that's 100 days old, sat at room temperature. '80s kid, Spartan, an ex-cop in the UK, said a racist word in a private group chat, got 20 weeks in jail. I think that was last week. Apparently he mocked the death of George Floyd. Quest Fanning, smart the White House didn't include that we understand language. Gulf versus Delaware. Shalaga is here. Ron Helton, slipping in blood. Someone dropped their strawberry jam. Yeah, Joffre9, you better get to it. I've been waiting this entire show. Yeah, there was a discussion about whether or not it was single at the top of the show, and it looks like it was on there. And I actually checked my Discord messages while we were watching a video, too. Apparently, I have a wife coming up in the near future. Yeah, Joffre9, I have your new wife. We'll see. I'm willing to go out, so... But no, I am single. I got engaged in... When the hell did I get engaged? I think it was October. I call up my third fiance and ask her. Yeah, it was October of 2020. And then at Christmas of that same year, she left me. Out of nowhere. And then I've just kind of been dating on and off since then. Nothing serious. I went over a year without a date at all. Just focusing on what I'm doing with the channel and what I'm doing with that. '80s kid Brandon, so stupid he'd return a donut because it has a hole in it. Dog-faced pony soldier, man, come on. Yeah, the FBI is investigating the one who found it. Yeah, it's persecution is what it is. Another one bites the dust. F's in the chat for Julian Assange and his impending suicide. Ron Helt says, the UK approved. He's not a UK citizen. He's an Australian. This is total crap, mafia government. Yes, but he's incarcerated under the UK judicial system. So they can approve. I don't care for it either, but yeah, they can approve that. Yeah, it does in relation to the country where he's physically seeking asylum. Is this the same Australia that fought alongside the US and the British in World War II? It is. It's not about citizenship, it's habeas corpus. Joffre9 says, it is the same as a man's prison. It's the same as a gentleman's prison. So, kitty diddlers, they don't fare well there. 80s kid, yes, blame the inmates for offing her. Ron Helton says, the crimes exposed by WikiLeaks have not been prosecuted. That is the real crime. Not revealing the crime, sick of this evil empire, ready for its complete and utter collapse. Well, for those who are going to be participating in the collapse, just stay off rifle range of my lawn. Ron Helton, this is the new version of Will Rogers' adage. I paraphrase, this is the first time the poor can drive themselves to the poorhouse. Skip to today, this is the first time the poor can push their cars to the welfare office. No gas. Yeah, imagine paying a huge dealer markup for a Ford EV, then returning it. Yeah, and the thing with the kids is they were 5, so they instinctively anticipated that the people in authority had their best interests at heart. So yeah, they probably drank just like regular milk and then realized after the fact. Ron Helton says, our current situation reminds me strongly of the events from the book Atlas Shrugged, which I have not read. It is in my Kindle to read, but I have not read it yet. The government meddled in every aspect of production to the point that not only did the trains not run on time, they also jumped the tracks. That book is over 1,100 pages long, which, by the way, is the same as the book that I'm currently reading. Quest's brother and wife ate the salt dough. Name markers at our wedding. Quest's brother has another epic name too. His name is Quest, and his brother has a name that has something to do with epicness, and I can't think of what it is. It's not Lore. That's Data's brother. That's what I was thinking at first. It was Lore. Banning says, I think the markets and the economy are in big trouble. I'm not cost averaging my reentry until after the summer. Terry Berry, that's a new name, by the way. Here in Canada, you use a firm voice to tell the attacker to stop assaulting you. Then you repeat in an extra firm voice if they continue. But you've got to make sure you've got the A. A. Stop attacking me, eh? I will give you a strongly worded letter if you don't stop attacking me, eh? Unless you're out in Western Canada, because then it's completely different in Western Canada. In Western Canada, it's more like, well, you see, what we have to do here is come down to the root of why you're attacking me and see what problems you have faced with the chaos of your childhood. Possibly look and see if your room is clean. Okay, bucko? Thank you for the Lemons Quest fanning. Yes, I see that. An ice cream, which was there this morning when I started, and then 13 more lemons. Thank you for that. I heard there are some towns way north in Canada where they leave cars on the streets unlocked so folks can jump in for safety from a polar bear. Interesting. I've never seen The Godfather. I've only seen like 5 movies, guys. I am trying to rectify that right now. But I also just I'm about to pick up Mass Effect to do after. I think we'll play either Bioshock or Mass Effect after Fallout 3 together. And I'll do it blind. Fanning hasn't seen The Godfather either, but he's actually seen movies. Terry Very. It was the cannoli. MK says, Godfather sucks. Long, boring, no humor. Gotta have jokes in any flick. Yeah, I started watching it one day when I still lived in Kenosha, but, you know, it's just life got in the way, and I was getting busier and busier trying to either... I was in the process of working with some family members to possibly buy a business, and then at that point it was like, okay, I don't want to live here anymore. Werewolves of London. The New York Times, a former newspaper, was Jason Blair's employer, in case I didn't mention it. Randy, I was offered a new wife as well. Yeah, Quest Fanning, I remember that rough time. Yeah, I carried it well too. Like, that was on... So, a little bit of history off that, and I know I've got to get out of here at some point too, but a little bit of history on what happened with that. Yeah, it was... You know, everything was going fine. I actually, still to this day, have the Christmas presents that she got from my parents in the back seat of my truck. She got them decorative towels. And I didn't, because it was the Sunday before Christmas, where I'd gone to see her. I'd spent the day with her, stopped what I was doing, went to go spend the day with her. And then that Monday, she went to work, and I started working on, I did contemporary, and I started working on, it was still the Red Ned Show at the time. And then, like an hour before we were live, I just got all their show notes done, ready to go. And like an hour before we were live, she called me up and said, yeah, I don't want to see you anymore. Which I think had something to do with her parents more than anything else, but, you know, if she can't stand up to that level of authority, she can't stand up to the authority of the government either. So it may have been for the best after all. But yeah, an hour before I was supposed to go live, and I did the 2-hour live stream with a smile on my face too. '80s Kid says, I was with my ex 25 years and she left me for a drunk. She's still with him. F in the chat. Randy, mine left because we just grew apart, but she's already sexting with a doctor who's the epitome of a CrossFit guy. She claims that happened after she decided to leave, but we have a family cell plan, and the calls between them started before it was over. Lame. Terry Very says, the man I marry better one day better be able to open pickle jars. I can do that. And I make my own pickles too, so... My brother's name is Valor. That's what it was. Quest and Valor. When counseling, it never came up, so she felt like she fell out of love with me for the last 2 years or so. Last status I knew was in December when our counselor asked if we agreed that we were on a good path and suggested we might need to meet as often. Then I got a text about how things were not better after about 2 months ago, given a chance to make it right and a time frame. Then the calls with him started, and shortly after it was over, she told me she wasn't going to talk about it. F. Can we play Jackbox TV together? I don't know what that is. I would be willing, but I don't know what that is. '80s Kid says, when mine left, I was destroyed for a year. Never thought I would ever be able to carry on without her, but the hurt got less and less. Now I just see her as a girl that I used to know. Yeah, that's kind of how, well, it was a little bit different the last live-in girlfriend that I had. Because when her and I split up, I was devastated before because we were still together, but she treated me like crap. She yelled at me all the time. If I tried to go back and talk to her or spend time with her, she'd snap at me and then just randomly say, oh, hey, let's go to a movie together or something like that. And I was so confused. I didn't know what was going on. I was super depressed. And then she broke up with me and I felt really, really good. I felt better. And then that was when I bought the microphone, started working on things, started figuring things out. And 6 weeks later, I made my first YouTube video ever, talking about the Parkland shooting. And then most people know the story of Liz at this point. I don't want to go over that one right now, but yeah, that one took me a while to get over. Oof. Fanning says, Ed sacked up big time. What did I sack up about? Ugh. And it looks like we're trying to organize on Twitter too. Just a reminder, Quest Fanning, that Randy and you are both in the Discord as well. So if you guys want to do that as well. All right, we're done. And it's 9:45, which means I need to go put on pants and go to work. Good show. Good live chat. Definitely good live chat. I need to go put 10 hours in today. Or 7 in tomorrow, one of the two, I don't know. I know that I'm not close to my 40 yet, just because, well, it got hot and I didn't want to be there. But yeah, we're going to head out of here for the day. So, where's my outro music? All right, so with that, we're out of here for the day. We'll be back here on Monday for more news and more headlines. I believe there's going to be a game stream this weekend. I don't know how I'm going to go pull that up. There's an errand that I'm supposed to be running to this weekend, so I'm not sure what to do with that, but we'll figure it out. We'll come together. We'll find something to do together off of that. So we'll have some fun with that. Otherwise, I'm going to head out of here. I'm going to throw some pants on. I'm going to go to work. And we will see you back here for sure on Monday, possibly in before that. So definitely come back, watch the Twitter, and watch the Discord for the announcements. If a pop-up video game stream comes up, definitely love to do that. We're still going through Fallout 3. But I do want to take some time for either, like I said, Bioshock, Mass Effect, do something that I've never played before for you guys. Because what I'm playing right now, I've played before. So we'll see what happens with that. We will see where that goes, and we are going to head out of here for the morning. Come back, join us, follow, all the fun stuff that I never actually say because, it gets irritating for all the YouTubers off of there. Like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell, this, that. No. If you like what you see, you know what to do. Otherwise, come back and join us here next time for more Contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.